Is it working now? Maybe I need to unmute myself. That helps actually. Yeah. Wonderful. Right. Okay. There we go then. Welcome back to F1 Brock Boys Tier 3. And it's time for round 10 of the season, which means we're arriving in the Middle East for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. 3 races remaining, including this one. And the championship is heating up. And in fact, the man second in the championship, Wardy, is not racing tonight. Which means it's a huge opportunity for Tolu to extend this championship lead even more. He leads by 17 points over Wardy, but after last week's dominant display by Soul Demon, the gap to championship leader Tolu is only 18 points. So Tolu still has to beat Soul Demon. And another fact, if Tolu outscores Jesus tonight by 4 points, it will mean that we will have a new Tier 3 world champion this season. Because we know Jesus has won the only 2 Tier 3 championships so far. And he's currently set 4th in the championship, just under 50 points behind the Alpine of Tolu. But we kick off qualifying around Abu Dhabi, and Jumpy Painter is the first out on track to start his flying lap. And lap times wise, we might be looking at a low 22 with a very good lap time. But on average, maybe mid 22, high 22s would be a very good lap time indeed. But we're going to see what Jumpy Painter can do. I know he is capable of low 22s, but first qualifying run will always be a little bit slower than your absolute best. So you're right on board with the Kick Sauber as he navigates his way into turn 1. 90-degree left-hander, then flat out to turns 2 and 3. Careful with the curbs on the inside and outside. He knocks over the bollard already. Now down into the braking zone of the hairpin of turn 5. It used to be a chicane here on the left, but it's not anymore. And he navigates it quite nicely, which is the end of the first sector. Now onto one of 2 back straights, both DRS zones. And in fact, the only 2 DRS zones, as Abu Dhabi is one of the few tracks on the calendar which does not have their start-finish straight as a DRS zone. But these 2 straights separated by a tricky chicane with the curbs that can really throw you off. And now running a very narrow line on the second DRS zone down into the braking zone of turn 9, which is going a very quick and flowing left-hander. A little bit of banking as well, keeps it as tight as possible on the exit. A wide curb zone, but you don't want to run too wide, you might end up invalidating. Now into the final chicane, which has become a bit more flowing, but some of these off-camera corners can be quite tricky on throttle and with the curbstones as well. But Jumpy Painter seems to be matching it quite nicely then. Flat out to turn 15 in the final corner, turn 16 to the start-finish straight. Good lap time indeed, and the 22.5 is the banker lap from Jumpy Painter, and that puts him almost 3/10 ahead of Kai already on his first run. Behind was Tomo just starting his flying lap. His teammate Shark has put in a 123.2, puts him at the moment in P3 out of 3 drivers that have set a lap time so far. Soul Demon only managing a 23.0. And that is behind Tolu, but just done a 22.8. As an VoIP in the Williams B5 to Terry goes up in turn 1, but his lap time is a 23.3. Just ahead of Sly DJ and Uno Master in the Ferrari. Currently set in P11. Kainzan has finally returned after quite a few races. So in the fight for the race win back in Bahrain. But lost that on the final lap of the race. His first lap time is a 0.1. So just over 0.6 of a second behind Jumpy Painter, who at the moment nobody is able to match or beat. After these first few runs, Bob in the McLaren goes into P3 on the second row with a good banker lap as well. So you've got around 13 minutes remaining in the session. 2 drivers remain to set their lap times. Tomo, who is just on a lap, I think he might have invalidated his last lap. And Jesus still sat in pit lane. TXT Tier 5 driver, also racing tonight, was very strong at Shanghai in Tier 5 last week. Looked to be dominating just like Soul Demon did in Tier 3 until he picked up a drive-through penalty at the end of a virtual safety car, which limited him to, I think, P5 in the end. After penalties, yes, it was. Currently on medium compound tire and has put a lap time good enough for P13. Just over a second of Jumpy Painter. Tomo on another attempt. I'm not quite sure. Looks to be quite quick on this lap. Majority of the drivers are back in pit lane, preparing for their second run in a few moments time. Can Tomo keep it within the white lines? He sure is trying to run a little bit wide, and that's another invalidation. I think he will now have to come back into the pit lane and put on a new set of tires to try again. Mahmudev down in P14 is pushing on for an improvement. He's got Tuish Terry right behind him on track in the ripple. There you can see him. As Williams is not improving right now. Tuish Terry certainly is, by almost 0.2 of a second to sector 2. Is at a big moment and sliding out. And that is not going to be an improvement on this lap. Bit too narrow on the inside of turn 9. Haas on top. Oh, very clear. We've got a Haas fan in the chat. Not other than Tier 1 Haas driver Shakir himself. Well, hopefully they don't replicate what Shakir did back in Tier 1. As long as they don't do that, they should be good for points. And a good amount as well. Kai is still on the front row. Has been on pole before this season, but not as many times as Jumpy Painter, was going back out for an outlap in the Sauber. And he's not the only one. Quite a lot of drivers actually going out for their second run. And Jesus has just started his lap. His first flying lap. Let's see what he can do. Not always the strongest in qualifying. Making his way down the first of 2 back straights. Help DRS now into the braking zone of turns 6 and 7. Keeping it quite cautious through there. Making sure to not invalidate. It is his banker lap after all. Now into the final sector, by far the most technical of the 3. One of the McLarens up ahead. going out of the way. Down into turn 14, where Nicolas Latifi crashed back in 2021. But I'm sure everyone remembers that. As Jesus makes his way out of the final corner, his first lap time will be a 23.6. Puts him in P15. Jumpy Painter then, unable to improve through Sector 1 by a few hundredths of a second. As his teammate has just gone second with a great improvement for a 22.5 in the 16 thousandths of a second behind his teammate Jumpy Painter. So we've got a Kick Sauber front row lockout again. It's not the first time we've seen that this season. But one thing that we haven't seen this season is a 1-2 in the race for Kick Sauber. Soul Demon has won 2 races in Bahrain and last week in Shanghai. And Jumpy Painter still yet to win his first race, and he's still not up on his time. His banker lap seems to be quite a strong lap time. But still searching for his first win of the season. Even though he won in Australia, which was an unofficial race. He's pulled back into the pit lane after the cancellation of Tier 3 and Tier 4 races due to some issues with the EA servers. As Kai, with a big improvement through Sector 1, almost 1.5 tenths up on his time. If he can pull that through for the remainder of the lap and find maybe a little bit more, he could well be on for a front row lockout. And Ivia Tomo goes fast as 122.31 a lap time. Puts him almost over 2 tenths clear of the Saubers. And that came out of nowhere. But a great lap time for the reserve driver racing for Aston Martin. And that will be tough to beat. But Kai is on a good lap. Has to make no mistakes though in this final sector. Hits the inside curb slightly there of turn 11. Might have lost a little bit of time through that section. On the final corner, crosses the line. Good improvement, but unable to go faster than Tomo. In fact, he's 1,000th of a second ahead of Jumpy Painter. Margins are very fine, as they usually are around Tier 3. Last season, Abu Dhabi hosted the finale of the season, and it was in wet conditions the entirety of the race, which was quite something. Don't see every day rain in Abu Dhabi. Certainly don't expect it tonight. Barteval also returning, has missed quite a few races. Was in the championship fight at some point, but he's now dropped down to 5th in the championship, tied on points with Jumpy Painter and a good 55 points. That is not true, 65 points off the championship lead, so he's not really in contention anymore, even though there's still 81 points left on the table, including this race. Have to hope for a miracle. And he's not going to improve on this lap, as Twitch Terry has just improved to P11. Not really where he wants to be, I think. He's actually set the exact same lap time as TXD. Yeah, sorry, I said it a little bit earlier, which puts him ahead and inside the top 10 on his Tier 3 debut. So doing a good job, must be said, as Bartel hits the wall on the inside of the pit lane entry. What I wanted to say is the pit entry on Abu Dhabi is a bit pitched. If you hit the inside curb during the race or during qualifying, you will get a warning for track limits. Or in qualifying invalidation, but in the race you will get a warning for track limits if you just even hit the inside curb in the slightest. So that is gonna mix things up a little bit, because race results might not actually be the official results. There's some people could potentially get their penalties removed in the end. So we'll have to keep that in mind, as they are removable, because well, that's not really how it's supposed to be. If you touch the inside curb, you should not receive a warning for that. So which there makes their way to the pit lane means that every single car is in pit lane with just over 3 minutes to go in this qualifying session. And it looks like that EVR Tomo has the upper hand compared to the rest, and might be looking at his first pole position in only his second race. He made his debut last week in Shanghai, but he didn't have the greatest of races. And a few moments, I think he spun out of the turn 13 going onto the back straight. In the end, finished in P14 and last. But he's going out again. The first one, Bob, is out on track, and he will be the first one to try and improve. Currently set in P7, but if he improves by just a few hundredths of a second, he will be in the top 5. Top 4 might be a little bit out of reach, so he will have to improve by around 3.5 tenths. It's just easier said than done. But the top 5 is definitely possible for the McLaren. Tolu will need to improve as well, knowing that Soul Demon is well, almost 4 tenths ahead of him in P4. And who knows if Jumpy Painter might help out his teammate, because realistically Jumpy Painter's not really in the championship fight anymore. But they are very much in the fight in the constructors. Haven't even mentioned that just yet. But Sauber, after last week with Soul Demon's dominant performance, have taken back the championship lead and lead by 10 points over Alpine. Haas also still in the fight, 21 points or 31 points behind the Swiss team. But with Wardy's absence, it will be difficult to score a lot of points, even though Kai is performing quite well so far and sat on the front row. As Bob makes his way down into the turn 6 and 7 chicane. I want to look at if Thomas, if he's up on the time. He's not. He's down by around 1.5 tenths, so that's going to be difficult for to improve for him. But there are other drivers out there who could potentially ruin the party of Thomas. Bob is up on his time by 7/100ths of a second, which is around the margin that I said that he needs for a top 5. Just needs to pull that through into this final sector. A little bit of a moment on the exit of turn 12 as he hit the inside curb, but looking quite nice, but runs wide through turn 14. Fortunately for him, he doesn't pick up a track limit, I was going to say, but it completely gets held up there by Kainzan, and there was nothing Bob could have done to avoid that. And that means that he will start in 7th, and Kainzan will almost certainly receive a penalty for that after the session, as he was very clearly in the way of the McLaren as Voip has lost his front wing. Slight DJ stays in 12th, is unable to improve, nor is Tomo. But what about the two Saubers and Kai? Kai is going purple. Soul Demon goes to 2nd place and gets replaced by Jumpy Painter, but neither of them is able to beat if you are Tomo's lap time. Jumpy Painter misses out by just under a tenth of a second. But what about Kai? He's up on his time by 200ths of a second. He will need to find a bit more in the final sector if he wants to get any near. Just throwing the car in, but runs a little bit too wide. Across the line he goes. 2nd place, misses out by 600ths of a second. And I think that means that Tomo will be on pole position, because I don't think anyone is out there to beat the Aston Martin's time, as TXT with a brilliant lap time goes P5 in the Haas. And we wait as Twisteri with a good improvement as well goes P6. Kainsan will, I think, be the last one to cross the line. B9, he will turn it into B6. Decent improvement, but he has got that blocking qualifying above his head, which will be looked in after the session. And S12 will obviously not improve, has invalidated and lost his front wing, but that means that Ivor Tomo is on pole position for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. But look how close it is. The top 4 separated by just over a tenth of a second. And 600ths separating pole from second place. Tomo on pole ahead of Kai. And the 2 Saubers will lock out the second row. Ahead of TXT with a brilliant performance so far in Tier 3. Kainsan in P6, Swishteri in 7th, SNM Foyb in 8th, and the 2 McLarens rounding out the top 10. And that concludes this qualifying session then. 1 extra point for Tomo for his pole position. Tolu, our championship leader, will start only down in 11th. So he has a lot of work to do as well. Especially with his rival Soul Demon sat in P4. But now we prepare ourselves for the race. "28 laps to determine our race winner." 29, in fact. Strategy-wise, we will be looking at the usual mediums to hards, hards to mediums. It all depends on any possible safety cars, to be honest. But softs are typically not the tire you would want to go for if there is no safety car. I think the majority will start on mediums though, and see where they end up. We know that Tolu is capable of some comeback drives. We have seen it in the last few races. At Shanghai, he came from P13 all the way to second place. And the race before at Monza, he came from P18 all the way to second place. This time he starts a little bit higher in P11. Can he do the same? If he can, then he definitely will put one hand on the championship trophy. Unless Soul Demon is the race winner, then it will be a little bit closer. Looks like Ivor Tomo will start the race on the hards, meaning his job will be to stay in the leading group. Of course, the cars behind him will be quicker in the opening phase of the race. Got about a minute remaining until the start of round 10 of the season around the Yas Marina circuit. Here we go then. It's time for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. We've got 29 laps ahead of us. If you are Tom on the left hand side with Kai on the right hand side, the 5 lights are on. And they're out for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And is that Kai already up the inside? Going into turn 1, going wheel to wheel with the Aston Martin, and Kai is going to take the lead of this race with the tire advantage. Has got ahead of Tomo. Then it's the 2 Saubers going wheel to wheel, turn 2, turn 3 and 4, and that is Soul Demon all out of shape. And getting overtaken by his teammates, Jumpy Painter down to P4. He had the better start, but couldn't quite put it off in the background. 2, 3 wide into the hairpin. That's as an employee with TXT. TXT not with the greatest starts, down to P8 from 5th on the grid, even though being on the medium compound tire. And a horror start as well for Bob, down to P16 from starting inside the top 10. Finds himself wheel to wheel with Uno Master into the braking zone. Turn 6 and 7, let's be careful here not to make any contact. To brake, always have to brake a little bit earlier on the opening lap. Tolu has made a position up to P10. Spartaval alongside TXT, and TXT is going to find himself down to P9. So another position lost on the opening lap. So there you can see the position change. Kai from pole position or from second place on the grid takes the lead of the race. He's already got a 9/10 advantage to EV Tomo. SNM Void with a great start as well. 3 positions up from 8 to P5. And TXT lost 4 and Bob lost 7. If you look at the tires, Twisteri, EVR Tomo and Alpha Hypol, the only 3 drivers on the hards, and everyone else is on mediums. Looks like Kai is trying to build a gap of over 1 second, but not quite able to do so. As EVR Tomo is still within the DRS range and will be for the remainder of this lap. Bit of a moment though on the exit of turn 5. And he's now under pressure from Jumpy Painter. Is the Sauber driver going to go for the move? Have a look around the outside into the braking zone of turn 6 as we go wheel to wheel. Around the outside he goes. Nice move from Jumpy Painter and gets past the Aston Martin up to 2nd place. And now Soul Demon also trying to have a go at the Aston Martin. Iver Tomo not quite able to heat up his tires as much as he would like in the early stages. Soul Demon having half a look up the inside, almost contact between the two. Look how close it is. Soul Demon. That was very impressive. They not collide in that corner, but Iver Tomo stays ahead for now as Kai, his lead, has shrunk down to 0.2 of a second due to the DRS of the cars behind. Already a gap forming between Kainzon and Twisteri. It's 1 second now. Twisteri, of course, starts on the hards. At the moment struggling to keep up with the medium runners in front, so the top 6 has broken free from the DRS range to the cars behind. And the same thing is happening to Alpha Wall, to the top 10. And TXT has dropped all the way down to P14, not sure what's happened. Started in P5 and losing positions all around, left, right and center. Now wheel to wheel with Sly DJ going around the outside and has down to P15 now. 10 positions lost. Not the ideal start at all. Jumpy Painter is going to get past Kai into the braking zone, and so is Iver Thomas. We go wheel to wheel into the chicane. Bit of contact as Kai clips the curb on the inside, the sausage curb, which is going to throw him a guard, and he now finds himself wheel to wheel with Soul Demon. Also, having a look is SNM Void trying to go for the double overtake. He's got past Soul Demon now on the outside of the Haas. Not quite enough space there into the braking zone of turn 9, and that allows Soul Demon to get back through and up into B4. Kainzon then also having half a look, but they're fighting it out quite aggressively on these opening few laps. And Twisteri has been overtaken by Parzival and Tolu. Tolu is up to P7 and is now trying to close the gap to his teammate, and he has. He's within DRS range, and that is great news for Tolu. Can now close the gap to the top 6 and put themselves back in the fight for the race win. Jumpy Painter, our new race leader, but I can imagine things will swap around in this opening stint with those 2 consecutive DRS zones. Sky has to leave a little bit of a gap, but regains that time on the exit. Jumper Painter is going to stay in front for now as we go into the chicane. And TXT has dropped down to P17. What is going on with the Haas driver? I can't quite figure it out, but there is just no speed in that Haas, and they've immediately dropped out of DRS range. Alpha Wall lost a bit of time, and now is in P15. Yeah, Jumper Painter remains in the lead of this race. Through the final sector, I think he ran just a little bit too wide there. Might have picked up a warning. You will have to be careful. You can only do it twice before you pick up a time penalty. So we go on to lap 5 of 29. And it's Sauber out in front, like we've seen many times before in this race, or in this season. But Tomo is closing the gap, around 0.2 of a second, and he might have a go on the next straight. And that is Sol Demon going up the inside of Kai. A bit of contact between the two, which allows Kai to stay in front, but losing quite a bit of time to the cars in front. And here comes Sol Demon again, as Tomo is going to retake the lead of this race, gets ahead of Jumper Painter before the braking zone. And Sol Demon goes round the outside of Kai to claim P3 nearly. Taking out his teammate there, a little bit of contact between the two Saubers. They're now in P2 and 3. The Jumper Painter, with the help of DRS, is going to re-overtake Tomo and takes the lead back at the halfway point of lap 5. And Tolu has put him well in this fight, as R5 was the first one to get a track limit penalty. The gap from Tolu to Push Derby is just over 1 second. Look how close TVO Thomas to the back of the Saubers. It's going to go for the inside into the hairpin of turn 5, which we might see a replica of last lap. Tomo is going to get past Jumper Painter on this straight, and Jumper Painter is going to try and get past him again. But Sol Demon is going to follow through, and is he going to try and go for double overtake? Not quite enough space at the inside of the Aston Martin, but they both have got past Jumper Painter, who drops down into P3. And Sol Demon out to second place. And we'll be having a look at the Aston Martin with the help of DRS. Not gonna go for the overtake just yet, as Kai seems to be struggling a little bit. As the two Saubers go wheel to wheel once again. Jumper Painter, that was very close for contact between the two. But Tuister now also reclosed the gap to under a second. So the entire top 9 is within DRS range of each other. As we go on to lap 7 of this race. Yeah, Tomo will struggle later on, as you said, while I think Bob has had a moment. Yellow flags for a moment there on the start-finish straight, but Tomo, like you said, he's got no hard runners around him. Means that if everyone else pits from the mediums to the hards, Tomo will be out on track all by himself, and will have nobody to swap around with DRS and to save his ERS. So he will struggle and will lose a lot of time to the ones who pit onto the hards and who can work with each other to close the gap with swapping around in DRS. So it's gonna be tricky for Tomo to try and win this race, because he will definitely lose out in the pit stop phase. But then in the end of the race, he will have the tire advantage. And they will start fighting again. But it's not going to be very easy for the Aston Martin. As S&M VoIP almost dropping out, and he's going into the pit lane. If he makes the pit entry, just about. But very early pit stop for the Williams, who was in at the end of lap 7 onto 8. And he's going to put on a set of hards and go for the undercut, as he was almost dropping out of the DRS range to the top 4. Actually, he's going for a 2-stopper, putting on a set of softs. And that is an interesting strategy for the Williams. We'll see how that is going to work out for him later on. As Tomo has built a gap over 1 second to Soul Demon. And that will help his case, because now he can try and drive off into the distance while his tires have the advantage over the cars behind him. But it won't be long before these drivers are going to pull into the pit lane, as the yellow flags are out once more. Not quite sure who it was for, as 3-second time penalty for S&M VoIP. Well, Tomo has got a 1.5 second gap to the Saubers and Kai. And Kai has now got a 1.5 second gap towards Kainzon, who is dropping behind us. Once again, we've got yellow flags. As Tolu is entering the pit lane in a response to S&M VoIP, but I can imagine that Tolu will go on to a set of hards rather than softs. Yes, he is. It's not the only one. Mahmoudev also following him in the second Williams. Tolu is going to get overtaken there by S&M VoIP, who obviously will be the fastest man on track for now with the soft compound tire. He has got around, let's say, 2-3 seconds to Tolu. He has. As the gap is now 1.8 between Tomo and Soul Demon, but Jumpy Painter is going to go around the outside of his teammate to re-overtake and reclaim that second place. Shark gets past Sly DJ, and Shark up to 7th place. Good race so far from the Aston Martin. As S&M VoIP already closing the gap to TXT. Just under 1 second. The gap's going to 2 seconds now as Kai pulls into the pit lane. The other Haas on to lap 10. And following him in is Shark and Uno Master. All three of them into the pit lane in response to S&M VoIP and Tolu. And let's see where Kai is going to come out compared to the Alpine, as he was a second or two just ahead before the pit stop phase. But Tolu has already got ahead as we go on the pit exit. Almost wheel to wheel, but Tolu has just got ahead of Kai. Tolu now in a Haas sandwich, but I think he's going to get past TXT with relative ease. So we'll have the DRS now. Onto this back straight, Tolu pulls to the inside, and he's going to get past TXT, and so is Kai. But Tolu ahead of Kai with the undercut. Now after two Mercedes swap positions, Jesus gets past Sly DJ. As Kai gets past Tolu, so the undercut worked for a brief moment, but now Kai has got back ahead of the Alpine. As the two Saubers swap positions, that's because Soul Demon is pulling into pit lane. As we go on to lap 11, and so is Kainzon. So let's see where the Sauber is going to come out compared to Kai and Tolu. putting on a set of hearts to finish this race on. He is gonna be behind both of them, I think. He is in fact side by side with Tolo on the exit, and that's very close for contact as the bollard gets knocked over. Soul Demon immediately going for the move up the inside. The tires are cold, but he gets the job done. Soul Demon ahead of Tolo, puts himself right in between the Haas and the Alpine. As Kai is not quite going to go for the move, and here comes Soul Demon sending it on the inside into the chicane. You would think with cold tires he would be struggling at this stage, but well, you can see on the exit trying to heat up the tires, and now it's under pressure again from Tolo as Kai is going to go around the outside of S12 VoIP. Soul Demon and Tolo, we almost go 3 wide in the background, and S12 VoIP has been hit and half spun around. Did he get squeezed there between Soul Demon and Tolo, I wonder, as they went 3 wide into turn 9. Soul Demon has got ahead now of Tolo, and S12 VoIP picks up another 3-second time penalty, while Jumpy Painter pulls into the pit lane on lap 12, and has that fighting between Soul Demon, Tolo and Kai cost them a little bit of time compared to Jumpy Painter, or will they still come out ahead of the Haas? Quite easily, I think they will, as they've already got ahead, and they might even have a little bit of a gap towards Jumpy Painter. Yes, they do. Jumpy Painter's lost a lot of time with the pit stops, and he's 2.7 seconds behind Tolo and just ahead of Kainzon, whose tires have warmed up by now. And has that put Jumpy Painter out of the fight for the race win, as Kainzon is going to have to go up the inside into the chicane. They go wheel to wheel between the Sauber and the Alpine, and Kainzon unable to go for the move just now. Meanwhile, Soul Demon closing the gap towards Kai. Not close enough though to go for the move. But Kai is in a virtual race lead right now, as Ivier Tomo continues on, as he will have to for a few more laps to make his strategy work. So Kai, Soul Demon and Tolo will have to make sure they don't find too much, or else they will lose out compared to Tomo in the last few laps. As the gap towards Jumpy Painter is 3 seconds now, and it's going to be really difficult for Jumpy Painter to close the gap, especially when the cars in front all got DRS on each other. Soul Demon goes for it up the inside into turn 6, and he's going to get past into the braking zone. Puts himself up at the P4 and virtually into the lead of this race. But here comes Kai with DRS, and he's going to go around the outside to put himself back in front of the Sauber. As we're near the halfway point of this race, Tomo's still out in the lead, ahead of Twitch, Terry and R5 Wall, all 3 of them still yet to make a pit stop. S12 VoIP has just pitted for a second time, and he's come out in P15, just ahead of Bob. Bit of a train forming behind Shark, all the way down to P14, Parzival, Jesus, Mahmoudov, Sly DJ, and Uno Master. As S12 VoIP setting the fastest lap of the race on the hards, which shows that he does have the pace, as Bob retires in pit lane, and he becomes our first retirement of the race after 14 laps. Meanwhile, Soul Demon has just got back ahead of Kai. And this time I think he will stay ahead for now. Yes, he does. Tolu still following, and Jumpy Painter now on 3.5 seconds. Losing time every lap due to the DRS. Shark with the wheel with Uno Master, but stays in front for now. And Jesus still down in P13, and he's not got the usual comeback drive like he has done multiple times in the past with poor qualifying, and then turns it into a great result. For now he's still sat in P13 and might be limited to a top 10 finish. Around about P9, P8 once cars in front make their pit stop. As Alpha Ball is going to get overtaken by Soul Demon, and now Kai as well. And Tolu is going to come steaming past in the Alpine. Down to P6, Alpha Ball still yet to make a pit stop. Yellow flags are out for a moment, and I think that was because TXT has just spun around and appears to be really struggling in the race. Yeah, huge contrast compared to qualifying, where it was P5, 2 tenths behind pole position, and now finding themselves down in P16 out of the points. That is Mahmoudev who spun in turn 7. And did he make contact with anyone? Or did he go around on his own? He's down to P15 behind his teammate. He's doing actually quite a good job so far in this race. And that is Shark with a moment in the final sector. As the 2 Mercedes are going to get past him. Slots him back just ahead of Parzival. Jumpy Painter's problem is that Kynes is not quick enough. Well, the Alpine is just right behind now, but I don't think I've seen Kynes overtaking Jumpy Painter in this second stint. You might actually see that now, but look how much he has to drain the battery in order to keep up with Jumpy Painter as he gets past now, while TXT retires from the session on lap 16. They are going to catch up to R5 Wallow in a second. Soul Demon drops behind Tolu now, down to P5. As the gap between this group and Iver Thomas around 14 seconds. And Sly DJ wheel to wheel with Uno Master, still having a look up the inside. Look how close they are on the exit. That nearly went into the wall. Both the Mercedes and the Ferrari, but fortunately it didn't. That was very close. With Uno Master having another look, bit of a contact, bit of a hit into third 14 as R5 Wall pulls into the pit lane. But Uno Master and Sly DJ battling it out for what is now a P9. It will become P8 as R5 Wall puts on a set of mediums for the remainder of this race. 13 laps he will have to do on them. And he's going to come out in P14, just ahead of Mahmoudev. And Soul Demon and Tolu swapped around once more, so has Jumpy Painter and Kynes. On the gap between Jumpy Painter and Tolu is just under 3 seconds now. So he has gained a little bit of time. But Kynes will have to be a little bit quicker in order to swap around every single lap. And SLM VoIP now goes off in turn 6, just like his teammate a few laps ago. And now drops down to P15. As we go wheel to wheel, the 2 Mercedes swapping around. Jesus up at the P9. And Sly D just dropped behind his teammate and Uno Master in just a sector time there. The good thing for Jesus is that he is, well, everyone around him has got a 3-second time penalty and he hasn't. He's just quite known for keeping his car within the white lines, which is why he usually finishes up quite high up the order. But this time, P8 might be the maximum, might be P7 after two Sterry pits. And also the entire top 7 ahead of him have not got a 3-second time penalty either. Soul Demon is gonna blast past Guy on the main straight. And now finds himself back in the P3 and the leader of this train. So I think it might be a 3-way fight for the race win then, between Soul Demon, Kai and Tolu. Just the gap's around 12 seconds to Ivry Tomo, and it is going to be difficult for him to catch up. He will need to be swapping around in DRS with someone, but there will have to be someone quick and someone who's able to keep up with a driver on fresh mediums compared to old hards. Jumpy Painter closing the gap slowly but surely to 2.3. As both Twitch Terry and Ivor Tomo make their pit stop, which means that Soul Demon is back into race lead on track, just ahead of Kai and Toto. But Ivor Tomo is going to come out in clean air in P6, and he will have 11 laps to close the gap. He's got 4.5 seconds to cover to Kainzan, and then a further 2.5 seconds to the leading 3, but they are fighting every single lap, and Jumpy Painter is closing the gap. You can see how much he's losing on the DRS straights, but in the corners he really seems to have the upper hand, as these 3 will be bunched up. Tomo will have to do it without DRS. And it's going to be this final sector where he will have to gain the most time on the top 5. And to my surprise, Swoosh Terry has come out of P7 and well ahead of that huge train behind Jesus. So Swoosh Terry is looking at a solid P7 here, if nothing goes wrong. He will definitely be quicker than the cars behind. And I don't think he's going to be able to catch up. He's got 7 seconds to Tomo and another 4 seconds to Kainzan in P5. Gap is now just over 4 seconds. And now just under 4 seconds on the exit. So around a second gained for Tomo, as Kainzan is going to get past Jumpy Painter. But look how much Tolu had to slow down there into the chicane. And the gap is now 1.5 between Kainzan and Tolu. Kainzan and Tolu. So they are definitely gaining time. And it's not over yet for Kainzan and Jumpy Painter in the fight for the race win. I think we might end up with a 6-way fight, although it might be just a 5-way fight now, because Kai has picked up a 3-second time penalty, and he's the first one to do so inside the top 8, and that has ruined his chances of winning this race, although we don't know if he picked up a warning on the pit entry. If he did, then he could get removed, but he can't pick up any more warnings for the rest of the race, that is for sure. As Tomo sets the fastest lap of the race, the gap's now 3.5 to Jumpy Painter, and Kainzan is almost within DRS range, and I'm sure Jumpy Painter will drag them into DRS range once he gets past Kainzan just in front with the help of DRS. Bit of contact though into the hairpin, but Jumpy Painter will have the DRS to overtake the Alpine of Kainzan, as Tolu still staying behind As Kai and Soul Demon both flashing their rear light and saving the battery as Tolu almost inside the Haas there. Triple Painter's got past, but he's lost quite a bit of time. It's now back to 1.6. As Kai is gonna go around the outside of Soul Demon, or is he a bit of contact between the two? Is Soul Demon almost going round? As he hit the back there of Kai, who just turned in. I was actually not expecting Soul Demon to fight for it with 9 laps to go, and I think Kai is having some connection issues, and he's really holding up this back here. And Tomo, he's now 1.6 seconds behind Kainzon. He's gained 2 seconds, almost 2.5 seconds on this lap alone. He is well within the fight for the race win. As Jumpy Painter is now finally put himself under 1 second, although Tolu just using the ERS to stay ahead. Don't think Jumpy Painter's got any ERS left in the battery. And the gap is now 1.1 as Soul Demon going up the inside of Kai into turn 5. We go wheel to wheel on the exit. Kai and Soul Demon. Soul Demon is going to have the DRS, so he will be ahead of the Haas as Tolu blasting past there with the help of DRS as well. And Kai now drops down to P3. Meanwhile, Tomo has already got past Jumpy Painter and he's now having a look at Kainzon. Bit of contact though into the braking zone. But Tomo is putting himself in the fight as Tolu takes the lead of this race from P11 on the grid. Has done it again and put himself in the fight for a race win. Tomo has got ahead of Kainzon, and this might help Kainzon and Jumpy Painter on closing the gap to the top 3 if they stay within the DRS range of the Aston Martin. Seven laps to go, and the fight is heating up at the front. Total leads ahead of Soul Demon, Kai, Tomo, Kainzon and Jumpy Painter. And it's effectively a 6-way fight for the race win here at Abu Dhabi as Jumpy Painter goes slightly wide through turn 1. Soul Demon very close to the back of the Alpine into the braking zone, but has to stay behind for now. But with the help of DRS, is going to re-overtake, pulls to the inside, and Soul Demon is back into the lead. And Tomo has fully closed the gap now, and is now right behind the leading 3. Jumpy Painter still struggling to close that gap. Tolu's back into the lead. Kai having half a look up the inside into turn 9. But he will have to stay behind the Sauber for a little bit longer. And when is Tomo gonna go for it? He's gonna go for it up the inside of Kai into the braking zone of turn 12, wheel to wheel. Not really a place where you usually see an overtake, and he's not quite gonna make it work. But that was an audacious move. Kai defending well and stays in front of the Aston Martin for another lap. 6 laps to go. And I think Jumpy Painter's finally put himself within the DRS range. And it took him quite a few laps. But after that fighting between Tomo and Kai, I think he has put himself for good now. As Kai, a bit of a moment, and here's Tomo's gonna try and go around the outside at the turn 5 later on the brakes. And he gets the move done. And up into P3 goes the Aston Martin. The challenge for him is though to build a gap afterwards as Soul Demon, with Tolu. And that was not a lot of space given by the Alpine. As Tolu completely shuts the door on the second straight. This time though, Soul Demon is going to try and go around the outside at the turn 9. We go wheel to wheel Soul Demon, and Tolu needs to have a history, and Thomas is going to try and go underneath for the double overtake. He's not going to go for the double overtake, but he does find himself wheel to wheel with Tolu. As we go wheel to wheel into the braking zone, bit of contact, and Tolu round into the wall. Our championship leader is round, and contact between himself and Tomo, and that has cost him dearly in the championship. Tolu into the wall, front wing damage, and that has pretty much put an end to his fight for the race win, as he is going to pull into the pit lane and he will drop all the way down the order. Might even be down to P14 when he comes out. A crucial moment in the championship as Jumpy Painter gets past Kai, but Kai with the switchback. Nice move for him to put himself back in front of the Kick Sauber, but Tolu eliminated from this fight. And that opens the door for Soul Demon in the championship, as Jumpy Painter once again having half a look, and that is Kai hitting the bollard. And now Jumpy Painter is going to try and go around the outside, but Kai seems to have the straight line speed advantage. He's going to stay out as Tomo goes up the inside into turn 9, and Tomo is back into the lead of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix with 5 laps to go. Tomo's out in front, ahead of Soul Demon by 0.2 of a second. Oh, Tomo into the wall! Tomo from the lead of this race on the exit of turn 14 spins around and he finds the ball, and that is another driver to end his charge for the race win. Absolutely throwing it away in these final few laps, and he's retired in the pit lane out of frustration. Tomo is out. What is happening in these final stages of this race? We've gone from a 6-way fight down to a 4-way fight. And after an incident with Tolu, just a lap later, Tomo finds the barrier himself. Sure is a controversial end to this race, but we still got a fight on our hands for the race win. Kai retakes the lead ahead of Soul Demon and Jumpy Painter, and you know what? This might actually be the day for Kick Sauber to get their 1-2. Finally, although I'm not going to jinx it now, after what happened to Tomo and Tolu just a moment ago. As oh, what has happened? Sly DJ and Shark have collided in the chicane. It's all kicking off in these final few laps, and that is helping Tolu out, because he will be put into P11. Because I think Shark has got damage as he has to his front wing. So damage limitation for Tolu. He leads by 15 points. And he might come away with P11. Oh, Soul Demon. Very nearly taking out the Haas. But Kainzan also still holding on in P4. We've got 3 laps to go. Soul Demon sends it up the inside of turn 5. Bit of contact between the two. And Kai, with the straight line speed, is going to pull alongside, but Soul Demon has the DRS. And Soul Demon retakes the lead of this race as Tolu sets the fastest lap. It's got around 4 seconds to Mahmudev. Karma going on. You might call it karma with Tomo and Tolu, but didn't quite get a clear view of that, of who was at fault. But that is Kai and Jumpy Painter once again. But absolute heartbreak for Tolu. And it's not Abu Dhabi is not his track at all. Last season, in the season finale, he had an incident on the final lap, and he retired from that race when he could have become world champion. And this season, once again involved in an incident to put him well out of the fight for the race win. So we go into the penultimate lap of this race. Soul Demon leads ahead of Kai, Jumpy Painter and Kainzan. But Kai has got a 3-second time penalty, so Soul Demon might be going for back-to-back race wins. And this is a massive day in the championship for Kick Sauber, we're going to gain a lot of points on the competition. Because Haas and Alpine have just got one car inside the top 4, while Sauber is running P1 and P3 right now in a 1-2 position after the 3-second time penalty of Kai. And Kai choosing to stay behind, as he don't want the lead going onto the final lap. And I think Sol even knows that, and he is definitely going to back up this train into the final sector. We're going to have one lap of racing to decide the championship. No, that was back in 2021, but it could become kind of the decider for the championship. If Sol even wins today, he might actually take the lead of the championship. But he is the leader going on to this final lap. But will he come out on top at the end of this lap? Kai is going to stay behind for now strategically, and he's going to go for the move on either one of these straights. Jumper Painter's also right behind to push. Sol Demon has the least ERS out of the top 3, and here comes Kai. He's going to go up the inside of the Sauber into the braking zone and cuts across Sol Demon, and that is Kain's all around and into the wall, and another one inside the top 4, having a moment, and Kain's on down to P5. But we focus on the fight for the race lead. Sol Demon and Kai. Sol Demon is going to try and go the long way around the outside. He's got nothing left in the battery. If you go wheel to wheel into turn 9, Kai on the inside. Sol Demon tries to hang it around the outside, but he can't quite do it, and that it means Kai has taken the lead of this race into the final sector of the final lap. And there's only a few corners remaining from him to cross the line in first. And we'll have to wait if he can get that penalty removed, but he's going to come around the final corner. Kai for Haas is going to come up across the line to win the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix on track. But Sol Demon, after that 3-second time penalty, takes his second win in a row ahead of Jumpy Painter. And that means we've got a 1-2 for Kick Sauber for the first time this season. Twist Terry with a very strong P4 ahead of Kainzan, who spun around on the final lap and hit the wall. Jesus finishing in P6. Tolu, after all that, he is close to cap, and Tolu finishing in P7. Talk about damage limitation. P7 for the Alpine, that might just put him just ahead of Sol Demon in the championship. Parzival P8, Mahmoudev P9, Alpha Hype Wall 10, Uno Master 11, Shark in 12. Sly DJ will cross the line in a few moments. Will he go for the fastest lap, I wonder? I think it's still in the hands of Tolu, and will stay in the hands of Tolu. Sly DJ comes across the line in P13 ahead of SNM Void. But wow, what an end to this race. What a chaotic end to this race. And in the end, it's Sol Demon and Jumpy Painter on top, with Kai in P3 after his 3-second time penalty. And I think Kai might be able to get his 3-second time penalty removed, as he has just said that one of them was into the pit lane. So provisionally it's a Sauber 1-2, but in the end Kai might just steal the victory. But for now, it's Sol Demon on top, and Sauber finally getting the result they wanted all season long. And that has for sure locked them in for the Constructors' Championship. Three retirements: EVR, Tomo, TXT and Bob. But what a roller coaster of a race. Tolu picks up the fast lap point in the end. P7 will be disappointed, of course, after what happened. But that sees the end then of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. We'll have 2 races remaining at Belgium and Silverstone. 2 iconic tracks, 2 legendary tracks. We've got a lot of history. Spa and Silverstone. And I'm looking forward to those 2 races. But the championship heating up even more after today. Soldiman outscoring Tolu. But that's it from me tonight. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you all for tuning in to the stream. Next week, we arrive in the Ardennes for the Belgian Grand Prix. But see you then. Have a good evening.